What is one hurdle that came out to you? You need to figure it out.
So you cannot follow the frameworks blindly. I was testing software, I was reviewing the code, I was even fixing bugs, but my team was less and less motivated. I invested in understanding and making sure that nobody makes mistakes. They are talking to stakeholders, suggesting ideas.
You get things done with your influencing power without an authority.
I think that it's more about what you do, not about what you say to others. So being a person that can say that, I'm sorry, I was wrong.
For an aspiring PM who is already working, what are the key 3 to 4 things that they should keep into their resume?
Sending just a resume to some email address or through a form, you can find a hiring manager and contact them directly.
If you're not a techie, you cannot become a product manager. How are you, Pawel?
I'm good, and how are you?
People are waiting on the queue, so I will let them allow. Hey, thank you, Pawel, for accepting my request and to help this community learn more about product management. Um, Welcome to this group. They are all aspiring, mostly are the aspiring PMs or the PMs in the early phase, and they really want to learn from you. So everyone here, I just wanted to introduce Pawel. So Pawel is one of the best from my side, writer in product management, and he helped me in my personal journey when I was looking for user journey mapping because I was coming from more to B2B and I wanted to learn something on the B2C user journey mapping, and I was looking for resources, and that's where I encountered with Powell's newsletter on the user journey mapping, and it gave me a great insights. Though I recently become a subscriber of his newsletter, and I'll tell you, it's abundant. Like you will all learn about much more a practical product management from his newsletter. He holds around 15 years of experience in product management. Powell, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I have over 15 years of experience in general, but more than 10 years of experience, particularly in product management.
Great.
Thanks for the invitation.
Great, great. So and he has around 1,76,000 LinkedIn followers and 80K followers in his newsletter, The Product Compass. So let's quickly start, Powell, with your introduction, your journey. What do you think? Like, if you can quickly give your introduction to the people out here.
Okay, so I started as a software engineer, and maybe I will not say what you would like to hear, but I never planned to become a product manager. So for me, that was just a natural consequence of my career growth. So I started as a engineer. I was a .NET developer for a few years. Then I became a lead developer. And as a lead developer, I was interested in the business side more and more. And as a consequence, my company suggested me that I can run a new department that they were creating that was focused on one of the technologies that I know, and that was pretty unique. It was the department name was Enterprise Collaboration, but it was really about SharePoint. So at that time, we didn't have SharePoint developers in our organization. So I became the head of department. And I was responsible for everything from sales, marketing, hiring people, training new developers, talking to the customers, and developing products. Some of them were, it was a mix of product management and project management because some of those initiatives were one-time initiatives and the other ones were the things that we developed and sold repeatedly. And then I left that company. I created my own startup, and I was running a startup for 5 years. I was focused primarily on the product side, and we were creating products related to SharePoint workflows, SharePoint intranets. We won some of the biggest companies from Poland and also FTS 100 companies, so the biggest companies from the United Kingdom. And then I exited, and I decided to focus on product management because, running a startup was not really giving me
The requirement that you need,
yeah,
motivation that you need.
Yeah. it was too much. So it was many things related to sales, related to the cash flow, negotiating contracts, negotiating with legal aspects. So it was just I had like 50% of the time that I can invest in on the product stuff.
So technically, you are an accidental kind of a product manager. That's what you was trying to tell. Like you never
Yeah.
aspired to be, and you just landed into a position where you don't have other option. But what do you think about product management? What it is as a very layman person, if somebody asks you what
Mhm.
is product management, what would be your answer?
Uh, so it depends if you ask about what product manager does, and if this is what we interpret as product management or product management in general, because product manager, I would argue that everything that companies do in some form is related to managing a product. So because products are the way to deliver value to the customers, and delivering value to the customers, this is the only way that you can sustainably capture value for the business. So running a company is about creating products for the customers that you can later use to capture value for the business. But if we focus on what product manager does, it's primarily related to discovering what to build. So what are the problems that customers have? What are their needs? What are their jobs to be done? Uh, Working together with designers and engineers to collect insights from different sources like customer interviews, but also data analytics, product analytics, market research, talking to different people in the organization that also interact with the customers, and then ideating on how you can solve those problems once you describe and understand the problems. And once you have ideas, testing those ideas to minimize or tackle the risks related to different risk areas like value, usability, viability, feasibility, ethics. But depending on the product type, I can also talk about other risk categories. So product manager is primarily responsible for what is happening before you select ideas for the implementation. You do not focus much on the delivery stream, which is the second stream that runs in parallel. But after delivery is done, you want to measure the outcomes. You want to understand what customers do with your product after it is deployed on production, learn from it, and in many cases, fix your features, fix your ideas, uh, and yeah, use the feedback to make it even better.
Great. So, what is one hurdle that you would like to tell us today when you are transitioning to product manager or you have suddenly started doing something related to product manager? How was that situation? And one of the hurdle, if you can speak, that came out to you and you need to figure it out of your own.
So I came from this engineering background, and at the beginning of my career, I made a lot of mistakes, in particularly related to my project management background, because this is the environment in which I started my career. So when I became the product manager for the first time, I struggled a lot with people being disengaged at work, waiting for very precise instructions, and I thought that I have to uh, point to clarify every single step, and dive deeper into, because with my engineering background, I was testing software, I was reviewing the code, I was even fixing bugs. But my team was less and less motivated. So the more control, the more attention I invested in understanding and making sure that nobody makes mistakes, the more disengaged my team was. So over time, probably that was one of the product conferences, but also Marty Kagan's work influenced me a lot.
Mhm.
I started doing the opposite. So instead of giving precise instructions, I started putting emphasis on what we are trying to achieve, what are the problems that we are trying to solve, what is our vision and long-term strategy. So the strategic context, that is also part of the Netflix culture, by the way. And yeah, just trusting people more that I was comfortable with. And uh, it didn't
Yeah.
happen immediately, but my last teams, two or three companies, they are running on autopilot. So I don't even have to know about the release. I don't
Mhm.
look at the code at all. They are talking to stakeholders. They are suggesting ideas. So I can really focus on, on that strategic part and on discovering what to build next, not to overseeing what is happening right now.
Got it. So one thing that you said right now is earning trust, right, in product management, right? And that was one of the kind of an, if I would say, a little bit of challenging, right, initially. So just like I just wanted to, call out to my people here who is part of this call. It's like in product management, you get things done with your influencing power without an authority. And one of
Mhm.
the key goal to achieve that is earning trust of the other people. So Pavel, if you can share some insight, like how important that earning trust is in the world of product management. I think some few lines over there.
Earning trust is essential. You cannot um, just demand trust from others.
Mhm,
So how you earn trust is not by. I think that it's more about what you do, not about what you say to others,
mhm,
and you gain trust over time. So some examples
mhm,
is talking about your weaknesses or about your problems. So being a person that can say that I'm sorry, I was wrong.
mhm,
Uh, your idea was better. It's about demonstrating that your decisions are made on are informed by the data. So you do not just make them because you're a project product manager and others should should just comply.
follow you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about demonstrating that you're able to change your mind if the
Mhm,
data or listen to the arguments and change your mind um, when others have better arguments or present new data,
mhm,
but also genuinely caring about what others have to say, trying to understand them, and caring about them as people, so that you are not focused on being the smartest person in the room and assigning all the achievements
So,
to yourself, but rather thinking and caring about the growth of the others. And as a consequence, you get more trust and people are willing to follow you.
great. I think you summarized it very well. I think earning trust does not mean that you have to, I don't know, like you have to go and do so please, so please. It's not that kind of an earning trust. It's about doing your work, making more transparent, understanding empathy as well, understanding their situation and making,
Mhm.
placing your request in a way that they don't feel burdened, but at the same time, you also need to get things done. So it's very important. Good point, Pavel. I'll just quickly move to the very important point, which my people would love to hear. Is I have read your article on how to prepare your the resume for PM.
Mhm.
So I would like to know, like, 3 to 4 pointers for an aspiring PM who is already working in different domains, right? Whether it's a developer or a business analyst, what are the key 3 to 4 things that they should keep into their resume and
Mhm.
the tips that you want to like to share with this group?
Okay, I think that the step number zero will be to select the right job to apply for. Because I saw people that were trying to apply for dozens or even hundreds of jobs every week and without good results. So instead of the mass applying, uh, I suggest focusing on. on jobs where you can demonstrate that you have relevant experience. So, for example, you've been working on a similar product, or it is somehow related to your passions, or
Mhm.
maybe you have experience with the underlying technology,
Mhm.
so that you can make an argument that you are really one of the best, or ideally the best candidate for this position.
Mhm.
And then in your resume, you should adjust the resume to the specific job offer. So instead of relying on some generic resume that you uh, send to everyone, try to identify key phrases in the job offer, like, for example, agile development, or cross-functional teams, or tracking the metrics, or demonstrating ROI, whatever is in the job description. This is what the recruiter got from the hiring manager, and they are trying to identify those keywords, those phrases in your resume. And the
Mhm.
more those phrases, the more those keywords stand out. Ideally, in your last on or last two
Mhm.
positions, the better. Uh, if you do not have experience, I would focus on demonstrating some transferable skills. Like, for example, if you've been working as a business analyst, or a product marketer, or product designer, you can still uh, work with stakeholders, you can still analyze the metrics, you can still work in cross-functional teams.
Mhm.
So I would still try to incorporate as many of those elements in your resume, and optionally professional summary. If you add this professional summary to your resume,
Mhm.
as many as possible. The next would be to quantify your impact. So instead of talking about significant achievement related to reducing customer churn, or something like that, uh, use the XYZ formula. This is
Mhm.
pretty standard, but it's about starting with some verb like boosted, or achieved, or uh, pioneered. I can
Mhm.
provide the list of those keywords later, but you can also uh,
Yeah.
find good keywords in the internet. Um, so the key is to identify, to point out in every bullet point what you have been doing, some activity, what was the success, what was the achievement, and
Mhm.
this should be expressed as a metric. So, for example, instead of significant reduction, it should be reduced customer churn by 15%,
Mhm.
and what exactly you were doing. So, some context,
Mhm.
like by tracking key metrics, performing customer interviews, and aligning with stakeholders. So the actions that they expect from the job offer, the phrases and activities, uh, a measurable achievement, and some um, yeah, some verb that starts the bullet point. Other things include making sure that your that is pretty obvious, but your resume should be ATS
Mhm.
compatible. So it means that um, applicants applicant tracking systems can parse them and can interpret them correctly. And you can use tools like Resume Rewarded. Perhaps there are also some free tools that you can use. In my newsletter, I share ATS tested resume template. So if you use it, you can just fill in information that is related to your profile, and it should be parsed correctly. Yeah.
So, few of the points, if I would summarize, the first point is don't apply to the job generically, like on a bulk. Just go understand the job description, see how much you are matching to it, and then apply to that job. If you have skills around it, point number two, if you have skills around it, showcase the skill specifically in the last job role or the existing job role that you're doing.
Mhm.
Highlight the keywords in skill sections in your job description, also in the summary if you want to. And the fourth point is make it more ATS friendly, right, in a format of XYZ,
Mhm.
where achieved X by doing Y, and the report, right?
Yeah,
So,
but I also wouldn't rely only on sending resumes. So first, after sending resume, if you failed I would use it as an opportunity to learn. So even though sometimes the response you might get is too generic, you can send 1, 2, 3 emails and
Mhm.
really push a little bit harder to understand what went wrong. Uh,
Mhm.
it's critical. And also, sometimes instead of relying on job offers that are posted publicly, or sending just a resume to some email address or through a form, you can find a hiring manager and contact them directly, for example, on LinkedIn. So
Mhm.
there are many ways that you can um, demonstrate that you care
Mhm.
about the job, that you are proactive, and increase your
Mhm.
chances. Because if you contact some person, for example, on LinkedIn, you might be
Mhm.
one of the first candidate that they will consider. They will just pick your resume from the pool, look at it, and maybe they will ignore the
Correct.
other.
Yeah, so yeah, the approach need to be a little different along with like just blankly applying. It's better to get in touch with the hiring manager or try to showcase them through social, platform like LinkedIn, or if you have the email, just push it through, tell about your skills. If you have the skills, good. If you don't have the skills, then use your transferable skills to tell that how beautifully you can fit into that resume, right? Like the job role. That's I think that's right. Uh, Cool.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so now I'll just move to the second part of it. Like it's very interesting. Some of the myth thing I just want to talk to you. The first thing is we see people claiming that you can become product manager in 90 days. How beautiful claim is that? Do you think
Mhm.
it's
You
possible?
can, no, you can take a lot of courses, you can learn a lot of theory, but you will not be able to apply this theory in practice. So even though I've been recommending a lot of books, a lot of free courses, and also you can find those free courses on my newsletter page. The courses and the theoretical knowledge is not enough. You need practice and just to understand how to apply this knowledge to real life situations. And also, you cannot follow the frameworks blindly. So over time, you develop an understanding where you can make an exception or which framework to choose, because you can have two competing frameworks, and which one is better in this situation. It's you do not necessarily learn those things from the books.
Right. This is very interesting point, right? So, mostly I have seen like, okay, that this is one RISE framework or a Moscow or a AAA double R framework. Many frameworks are there. And this is a very interesting point that you said that when you are doing this job practically, it can be conflicting, like
Mhm.
can be conflicting with two different frameworks, and that's
Like
where.
for example, I try to cover some of those considerations in my newsletter. So for example, for product discovery and for creating new product, you can use for product discovery in general, you can use jobs to be done and start with the approach that Tony Uliuk recommends, or you can follow opportunity solution tree by Teresa Torres. And which one is better? People don't discuss it. I get the impression that different creators are afraid of, like, every framework, every approach is just praised, and we do not talk much about what are the pros and cons and how they can work together. I try to do it in my articles sometimes. Apart from that, for example, you have the concept of the product trio, and if you take a course or you read Continuous Discovery Habits by Teresa Torres, you will learn, you can understand that the product trio consists of product manager, product designer, and lead engineer. And in practice, and even if this is your case, that you need those three people, it may turn out that your lead engineer is not available and cannot
Mhm.
participate in every customer interview. And so over time, you can test those concepts and understand um, what are the what are the things that you can agree on, you can accept, or what exceptions you can make to make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get it. I think, guys who are still listening to us, I'll just suggest that please go and subscribe to Powell's newsletter. I'll tell you, there is a huge lot of resources. You will learn a lot. And he also have an free product discovery course there. Once you subscribe, you get an access to it. Um, and trust me, you will learn few things very practical and very detailed oriented, and then you can apply them. Powell, if you could speak two words on your newsletter.
Yeah, so apart from being a full-time product manager, I'm writing the Product Compass newsletter. Currently, it has more than 80,000 of subscribers. I'm publishing weekly, and I cover a lot of topics like product discovery, product strategy, leadership, product marketing, execution, product growth, and others. And I try to include a lot of templates, a lot of examples, and a lot of actionable tips. And also one of the things that I try to do is to connect the dots between different frameworks, different approaches, and different authors. Uh, yeah, and
Yeah.
for my premium subscribers can participate in enroll in two courses. So one is from strategy to objectives, where we discuss how to start with a vision, then product strategy. What is product strategy? What are team objectives, and how to express those objectives with objectives and key results. Um, and another one is about continuous product discovery, which is a product discovery for an existing product.
Mhm.
So different concepts discussed by Teresa Torres in continuous discovery habits. I combine them with opportunity score from the Lean Product Playbook by Dan Olsen, and an approach developed by Strategizer to plan and document your experiments.
Right. Awesome. Like this is, guys, please, I'll request, spend this and you'll never regret it. You'll have many resources, and I have seen those resources. You can take my words as well. So coming back to the myth part, right? I have a very interesting question to you on the myth. Like, it is a myth, or it has been, most of the people think that if you're not a techie, you cannot become a product manager. And even I did a survey on this, and around, out of 600 people, I found that 400 or 500 people odd has that doubt that I don't have that specific technical skill to become a product. How do
Mhm.
you think? Is this a myth or is this a reality?
So as a product manager, so uh, I had, I personally had too many technical skills, or I was unable to uh, forget about my technical skills, and I struggled a lot at the beginning of my product manager career.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So right now, even if I can, I do not discuss things like database in uh, detailed algorithms, or if I see some .NET code on the screen, I try not to comment on it. Um, but at the same time, understanding the basic technology concepts, like what is a database, what is an API, what is a GET request or POST request. So those things help, but you do not need to be proficient. You just need to understand the basics of how the technology works. And definitely you do not need to code anything. Uh, you are not
Uh,
supposed to do that.
this is an interesting way to say, right? Like, you don't, I think do you code now being a product manager?
No,
Do you
no.
review codes?
Sorry?
Do you review the codes?
No, I don't even have an access to our code repository. I could, but I didn't request that on purpose. Because I'm aware of my mistakes from the past, that I avoid it as much as possible. So I don't have an access to our code repository.
Yeah. So to my people here in this call, one thing coming up very clearly through this talk is that yes, you need a technical knowledge. You cannot avoid that. But at a very high level, you need to know how the architecture is. You need to know how APIs works. You need to know how few things about the APIs and the structure and everything. But technically, you will not code being as a product manager. If you are an engineer and you love to do that, you might, as Paul said, you might get an access and review the codes. But again, you are just doing the engineer's job. You are not doing the program. Now you are going back into the engineer's place and telling them, "Hey, fix this code," which they will certainly not like. So,
They
so
will not like it, and they might become disengaged, and it's not worth it. It's better to trust that they are professionals, and it results in much higher motivation. And like I'm really happy that my current teams. I'm not I'm not sure this is just coincidence, or um, maybe I'm performing better, or maybe I'm in better companies, but they really do everything themselves, and they even talk to stakeholders. They care about the business outcomes. They care about how we will monetize it, or we even discuss things like churn or revenue during our refinement sessions. So um, if I were to dive into the code base, I doubt they will be so engaged.
no, it's a very good point because as I told you, like out of 600 plus survey reviews, like 400, 500 people has commented that I don't have that specific knowledge and specifically on the technical part, right? So can I become a product manager? And your answers actually give a relief to these people, right? So that they do not need. And even in my career also, I grew from a pure finance guy where I used to do debits and credits and looking into gap analysis, like accounting principles and everything. From there, I become a product manager at tech. So I never code. I just understood. I learned how to do a HLD. I learned how to read a LLD, but I never go and build them. I never draw them. It's the engineer who did for me. And then I understood from them and then able to do it. So technically it's a myth, but again, another proof Powell is also calling that out. So coming to the another point, are PMs are really a mini CEO or a CEO of things? What do you call about this?
Yeah,
Or
I
is
know.
it the motivational or is this the motivational phase that the managers use? You are a CEO of your product, go get this done. So what do you call it out?
Uh, I yeah, just to be fair, yeah, I disagree, but just to be fair, there are some maybe not the majority, but there are some known authors that still repeat this phrase. But the main difference is that as a product manager, you do not have any, to me, is that you don't have any authority over your team. So you cannot just point a finger and give someone a task. You don't have any authority over stakeholders, over designers, over engineers. You need to influence them differently. Just so this is leading without authority by explaining why the works matter,
Yeah.
by also by gaining trust, so that they trust in your decisions, and they trust that if you don't know or if you are not sure what is the best decision, they will be open to listen. Uh, so I really don't like this statement about PMs as mini CEOs. Probably there are also good CEOs who they are good CEOs who do not use the authority to lead, but I think the intention of this statement is that uh, yeah, I don't like this.
Yeah, got it. And another thing is like, what do you think? What is important, ideas or execution, or both goes hand in hand?
Yeah, so the common knowledge is that execution is more important, and I agree, but I think that what we might be missing is that those are not two phases. Like it's you don't have a phase when you just came up with this one brilliant idea of the entire product and then you just execute on this idea. In practice, to build a product, you need dozens or hundreds of small ideas, and most of those ideas will not work. Um, so even if you have some initial idea, like the initial prompt of what the product might be or what problem it will solve and what the key capabilities and features might be, you still need to go through this process of first idea, yeah, collecting insights, ideating, testing your ideas, and then once you get enough confidence, learn by delivering in small iterations. Still, many of those ideas will turn out to be bad ideas. So even if you perform product discovery, some ideas needs to be rejected. Other ideas need to be fixed or improved before they deliver um, the value that you hope they will deliver. So it's it's like a huh, it's like those you have those cycles of building, learning, and analyzing uh, analyzing the outcomes and improving your work. Uh, so there is no no initial phase with idea and then the final phase where you just execute on this idea. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the key thing that I take away from this is that you need to have idea, but it's like the many small idea. It's not that one big chunk of idea and then you are executing it. Small idea, you do the execution, you test it, and most of like many of them fails, and few of them works, and that continuous generation of ideas should come at the same time the execution. So it should go in a
Mhm.
quicker version, like ideas, execution, test, success, okay, fail, drop, move to next idea.
Yeah, it's a common pattern in different frameworks. Like you have this loop in the Lean community from by Eric Rice, but also Jeff Patton has been proponent of the dual track agile. Martek Kagan currently calls it continuous discovery and continuous delivery.
Mhm.
But the main idea is to do that in parallel. So in parallel, you generate ideas. Um, you can generate the insights, analyze the insights, you generate ideas, test those ideas, and at the same time you deliver some of those ideas to production, and you learn from customers using your product for real.
Mhm. Got it. So that's excellent, right? Like this gives a clarity, right? Like it's a continuous discovery or a kind of an, a kind of an agile thing. Like this is kind of an agile thing. You got an idea, you test it, got a result, um, positive, keep it, negative, drop it, move to the next. So that you don't waste time and you also don't waste resources. When I say resources, it means like the engineer's capacity to work or the effort that you took to build it. All right. So I think I'll take some few questions which I gathered from from this community, and I will try to ask you in a very summarized way. So first question that has came is like to develop a product, like how do you develop a product from scratch? What key skills do you need to succeed as a product manager?
It's a very big question.
Keep it
Uh,
short.
yeah, but
Nitty.
so I understand that this is about a new product, right?
Yeah, a product from scratch.
Okay. So to develop a product from scratch, this is the process is very similar to continuous product discovery, but you need a little bit a bit different insights because you cannot just from the beginning run continuous discovery and continuous delivery because you currently do not have any product. So the first step is to go into the research, and you can talk to the potential customers. You can talk to founders. Perhaps they
Mhm,
have did some research. Use techniques like social listening to see what customers or maybe customers of your competitors say in social media. Uh, you can use also some public data or
mhm,
market trends, analyze the industry with Porter five forces or yeah, Postel five forces. Then you need to come up with the initial idea of the product. And this
mhm,
initial idea, typically this is not the complete picture of the product, but you
mhm,
should define the key features and capabilities, the key problems that your product is solving for who. So who is your first customer segment? We often call it beachhead segment, which is some specific market segment that you want to focus on as first. And before building a product, you would like to perform a simple experiment to verify how the market will engage with this product. I like the idea of Alberto Savoia from the Reddit, in which he discusses the concept of XYZ hypothesis. This is a different XYZ from the one that we discussed in resumes. But this is about your key assumption that, for example, I assume that 20% of the customers who, and then you can specify a specific market segment like students or APMs that would like to break into product, will perform some action that involves skin in the game, like purchase a specific course from the website for, I don't know, $50. So what I like about this hypothesis is first, it combines some real commitment from the customers. So not just opinions, not usability tests or surveys, but that customers invest in your product in some form. And this is the hypothesis that you can actually test. And after testing this hypothesis, you would like to dive into more detailed experiments like value feasibility, viability, value viability, feasibility, and viability, and just to get the details of every feature, and then create your value proposition. So how you understand how your value proposition compares to what others and what competitors on the market offers, and you better have a good reason to differentiate yourself and start developing a product. So I would argue that just to go back to your question, so those are skills related to product discovery. Just you use a bit different types of experiments like prototypes, or you can also use MVPs later to test your ideas and to develop the first version of the product. But this is product discovery, working with data analytics, interviewing customers, which is also arguably part of product discovery, understanding of strategy and business model, because you need to understand, because when you discover the first version of the product, you also discover your strategy, and you formulate your strategy, you formulate some hypotheses related to your strategy, and you formulate your first business model that you can also test. So a PM who is working on a new product also needs to understand this business context. And yep, you do not need to know about delivery, because delivery is again something that engineers can take care of, and they can also think about the risks related to whether what you are trying to build is possible to do.
Got it. Thank you. So I think there are two more questions which you have already answered. Like one is, what strategy can help someone land a product manager job or transition from roles like business analyst, sales, or APM to PM in the current market? Do you want to put in few thoughts over there, like what kind of a strategy? So you have already spoken about how to apply, use some of the strategies to apply for a job. Anything else?
Yeah, there are strategies to apply for a job, but I would rather, instead of changing a job and transitioning to a product manager role, I would rather try to transition internally. This is much more simple. Or eventually get a job at a startup, because in startups it's usually much more easy to transition. Even if you don't start as a product manager, it should be relatively easily to eventually land in this job. But as long if for example, if you are currently engineer, I would rather encourage you to land a principal engineer or engineering manager role and then transition to product management
Mhm.
and work closely with your current product manager and perform some of the job that is typically uh, assigned to product manager. It's like be active in communication with your stakeholders, take
Mhm.
part in customer interviews. Maybe you can help with working with a product backlog is not really something that product manager must do. So
Mhm.
just be a part of, just work closely with your product manager and try to help in different things that he does, especially things related to product discovery and how what you are building will be affecting the business. So what are the business outcomes? How what you are building will help
Mhm.
you capture more revenue, or
Mhm.
how it will affect customer retention or help with activation. In most organizations, or virtually in every organization I worked with, senior engineer, uh, every senior engineer could easily transition into product manager if they only wanted.
Mhm. Got it. Got it. Yeah, I think that's great. I think these strategies really help. Like what you said about the, the engineers, right? Like grow up to principal engineer or a SDM kind of a thing, so that you get more of the stakeholder handling part, and then also work along with it, and then probably.
Yeah, at the end of the day, those are people competencies, and if you develop people and communication competencies, then making a transition shouldn't be a huge
Mhm.
issue, especially if you are interested in other areas that product manager is typically responsible for,
Mhm.
and to demonstrate that in your organization.
Got it. One of the specific question I got from this team is that, sometimes they have faced a question that you don't have prior experience as a software developer, or you don't have experience in technical. So how do you think somebody who is coming from a non-tech background should handle this kind of a question during a quick sync up, or the, and this generally happens in India, specifically
Mhm.
in the first round when the recruiter or the hiring manager is screening the candidate,
Mhm.
and that time they generally ask or comment kind of a thing about it.
Um,
So
oh,
what would be your strategy to, or your thought process to answer this kind of a thing?
mhm. So if hiring manager is asking you this question, this already means that they accepted your resume, and that probably was not the key requirement in the job offer. Otherwise, you will not be invited. And if your first, typically in at least in Europe, your first interview is with not with a hiring manager, but with some recruiter, and only later you meet with the hiring manager. So I would assume that they don't necessarily require it, but at the same time, they want to understand. So, what is the intention behind this question? They want to understand uh, that you can actually do your job without a technical background. Yeah, you can just talk about some experience that you got. For example, you have built a website, or you used Zapier to do some automation. Uh, Maybe you had done some student work. So if you can present some tangible arguments that you actually work with technology,
Mhm.
you did something with databases, you did something with uh, HTML or web technologies or any technologies that are relevant for a specific job.
Mhm.
That would be great, but I don't expect it to be a blocker. How
Mhm.
does it look from your perspective? Maybe you can do a simple project to demonstrate that, like
Yeah.
create an app.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Like at least I can get a kind of a sense of how to, decode this question or statement. The first thing is that
Mhm.
if your CV got shortlisted and this is being asked at the first screening round with the hiring manager or the recruiter, then probably the good news is that your CV is screened, and you have been selected for this role. That is the first point. Second thing, if they are asking for this particular thing, then either you can show them how you have done some kind of an automation, or maybe how you have thought through about thing, like maybe a designing a no code based website, or maybe a Zapier, or using some of
Mhm.
the functionality, and knowing that okay, I know how to do the API testing through Postman. Through maybe you have taken those courses through Udemy or other online things, and you learned it and you applied it and you did something, so you can showcase that. I think that's pretty well summarized, right, Powell?
Yeah, it's about demonstrating that you can have a basic understanding of the technology and you will be able to communicate effectively with engineers. So I would prepare
Mhm.
one, two examples of relevant technologies and how you use
So
them.
yeah, so I'll just running out of time. I'll take two more questions for you, and very simple. First thing is, what tools and critical thinking skills are essential for a PM, especially in product design?
So as a product manager, you do not need to design anything. I used to, and I currently don't do it. I used to work with Balsamic and create some low fidelity user prototypes.
Mhm.
But I was getting an impression that my work influences my designers too much, and then it restricts what what they can suggest in terms of user experience. So, and especially with new technologies,
Mhm.
with the current tools, you can, instead of creating low fidelity prototypes, you can
Mhm.
go right into high fidelity with tools like
Mhm.
Figma. And yeah, in my previous work, in my current work, and I think this is a standard that designers use. Most designers use Figma as a platform to create design resources and prototypes.
Right.
So, but you are not supposed to do that. You do not need to modify anything in Figma. Again, I have that permissions theoretically, but I don't touch it. And also, this is my conscious choice. What other tools? I would rather focus on understanding of what are the good patterns and what are the bad patterns and what are the some of the resources that I can recommend, and they are actually free, are Laws of UX.
Mhm.
And this is a book, if I remember correctly, by John Jabloński, but also he has a free website where you can explore those laws of user experience.
Mhm.
And another resource are Laws of Simplicity. I'm sorry, I
Mhm.
don't remember the author, but you can also find a website where each of those laws is described. So for product manager, it's working with design. I would argue it's not about tools. It's more about the mindset, more about understanding what are the good patterns, analyzing the products, uh, trying to understand why they made specific decisions.
Mhm. Got it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I think makes sense. And the very last question, and I think it might excite you as well. How do you manage the burnout in the PM role? And how do you continue to grow in your career?
Uh, yeah. So there is a for me, this is a misconception, and I know that many people and many also authors and blog authors would disagree. That some say that PM must work 50, 60 hours a week. Uh,
Mhm.
for me, it's more like 30 hours, and
Mhm.
this is completely realistic because, especially with the tools that you currently have, you can automate things like writing PRDs or creating user stories if you do it at all as a product manager. It is not obvious that product manager should manage a product backlog, but even without LLMs, this took us several hours a week. So, for example, user stories, I follow
Mhm.
part conversation confirmation pattern where the user story just explains briefly
Mhm.
what is the problem that we are trying to solve, some key assumptions, maybe linked to
Mhm.
design, and then very short acceptance criteria, and the rest is just discussed with the team without creating too much
Mhm.
documentation.
Mhm.
Okay, meetings, you need a few hours of meetings a week, but you do not
Mhm.
attend to every, as long you do not try to micromanage people,
Mhm.
and you automate the repeatable tasks. I think that 30 hours in Europe it is realistic. I have heard that in the United States it's
Mhm.
probably more demanding, but I still
Mhm.
doubt you need to work more than 40 hours.
Mhm.
Uh, so my main advice would be just to analyze what you are currently doing and whether all those tasks are really needed. If
Mhm.
some of them, so for example, testing, if this is really something that you need to do as a product manager, maybe this can be tackled by QA engineers or
Mhm.
developers. If you spend 20 hours a week writing user stories or creating a product backlog items, I would try to understand if really this is needed, and if
Mhm.
all this is needed now, because I have seen product managers who create user
Mhm.
stories, very detailed user stories, that can be tackled, for example, in 6 months. So
Mhm.
I currently have items for the next 2, 3 weeks, and that's all. And many of them will never be needed, so they stay on some Miro boards, and just when they are needed, I create them in the last moment.
So I think one of the thing that you said that like very interesting was that, 30 hours, like mostly you have to work for, like you work for 30 hours, and the reason you can achieve that number of hours is because two things. One, you try to automate things and never go into this micromanaging and checking each and every stuff, whether it's happening accurately or correctly.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah. I just recently took a day off during the release, and nothing happened. I knew that I had an engineering managers who can take care of it. There are developers who will monitor everything, and as a product manager, I really cannot add value because if there is a technical problem, it's engineers that need to solve that problem. So and they know, and they are mature enough to know if, for example, if something is failing and they cannot fix it, that they can revert those changes by activating a feature flag or deactivating a feature flag. So
Makes sense. Absolutely. I think I love this discussion. It went over 4 minutes, but I really love this, and I wish I could have continued this for more. I think people would be happy to listen, but I have to conclude it here. I really want to appreciate Pawel that you came in, helped our community to learn, give some few real life insights, and answer their questions, particularly, and giving real insights of the world. It's really helpful. Thank you for that.
thank you for the invitation. That was a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you, team, for joining and listening to it. Really appreciate that.